Hello and welcome! This is Beriathan of the Citadel Guard of Gondor, and today I bring you an update on the Before the Shadow playthrough I've been teasing since last year. After asking you guys, the consensus was for me to roll a new Beriathan on another server to do Before the Shadow on level. Now, this isn't as simple as choosing the server and adjusting the sliders at character creation, or at least it isn't for me, because while a relative small detail, it meant a lot to me making this new Beriathan equal to the one I have on Arkenstone to make the Before the Shadow playthrough consistent with the rest of the channel and hopefully find a way to connect it with the first books of the Shadows of Angmar storyline in a way that feels natural, so that this Before the Shadow playthrough can serve as a prelude of sorts to the entire Volume 1 playthrough. You might be asking yourselves what was needed to replicate the version of Beriathan we have on Arkenstone, so let me walk you through the entire process of choosing the server and replicating the same outfits, weapons, or as close as I can get, more on that later, and our trusty companions Carolif and Limbot to answer the question of how to roll a new Beriathan. First, I needed to pick up a server in which I had an existing character in order to accomplish all the other things I will get to in a moment. So, after making sure my name was available in there, I chose Landrovo. I already had another Warden I had created a few years ago to check the role-playing reputation of the server, and while this Warden was just level 6 or so, that still saved me some time, and time was of the essence in this entire endeavor, as I knew I needed to be at least level 100 to go to all the areas I needed and get the items I wanted. Knowing that getting to level 100 would take a long time, I started leveling her up around June last year. However, I didn't play with this character frequently enough, and I found myself at level 30 around the same time Before the Shadow was released. The clock was ticking. I knew the end of my Gundabad playthrough would come around March or April, so that gave me about 4 months to get all the things I needed. Thankfully, the Black Friday sales last year allowed me to get an Ultimate Edition of Minas Morgul for a very low price and use the level 120 Valar to make up for the lost time. So I was back on track and ready to get into the meat and potatoes of these preparations, which consisted of 3 different kinds of farming. The first one of these involved LOTRO points, a considerable amount of LOTRO points. I needed 1,995 for the Steed of the Citadel Guard, 295 for the Cloak of the Citadel Guard, and 195 for the Stoic Pose emote. Supposing I didn't get any discounts on these items, that meant 2,485 LOTRO points. My options were either waiting 5 months to get those LOTRO points by only using my VIP monthly lot, farming them by doing deeds and maybe some edit looting runs on low-level alts, or purchasing them. Knowing that I had 4 months until the end of my Gundabad playthrough, and that I would also get some extra points just by finishing that, I decided to simply wait and get the LOTRO points passively as I focused on other things. I ended up getting more than enough points this way, so this was technically the easiest section to complete, as it required the least active input from my part. Next comes Carolif, which means getting the Husky Wolfdog tome for 3,500 Figments of Splendor. This tome is only available with Myrtle Mint, one of the seasonal barterers, and she was not available at the end of last year. In fact, she was scheduled to come back by March this year, so I knew I had more than enough time to get all the figments I wanted without worrying about her availability. I took advantage of the Yule Festival at the end of last year to take a couple of characters through it and get all the figments. Easy too, but also time consuming. I was technically ready, but I still needed to wait for Myrtle Mint to come back into the rotation. To make things worse, and the sole reason why it took me so long to start this playthrough, Myrtle Mint's arrival was delayed a whole month until April 19th, so the Husky Wolfdog was the last thing I got, even though I had all the figments I needed since late December. The recent changes introduced with Update 35, making cosmetic pets and usable inside instances, made me reconsider if going through all this effort was even worth it, or if it would be better to forego the Husky Wolfdog and use the figments to barter for some cosmetic weapons with the Roving Threats Quartermaster. And again, more on that later, but I have grown attached to adventuring with Carolif, and if I really want them, I can still get more figments through festivals or modes and barter for the weapons. At that point, I also realized I can do some missions and get all the modes I need in a fairly short time thanks to the weekly quests, so that helped alleviate my concerns. Now comes the part that I dreaded the most, as I knew it would require the greatest effort from my part. To replicate the Citadel Guard outfit, as explained on my previous video, I needed a lot of items. Thank the Valar once again for the introduction of the entry-level Morse gear that shares the same appearance as the Causeway and Armory sets, but only costs a few silver instead of thousands of commendations apiece. I would have gone crazy otherwise, but instead, getting the Morse armor only required a visit to the vendor and then saving the pieces in my wardrobe. My next stop was North Ithilien, where I needed to collect a whole lot of flower extracts until I had 4 vials of sapphire extract and 8 vials of amber extract. Doesn't seem like much, but these are rare drops, so I still had to do my fair share of running and gathering. Still, getting the flower extracts took me just an hour or so, far less than I expected, and with those I could barter for the brushed boots of the Ithilien Pathfinder and the lacquered helm of the Ithilien Captain. Then I got some black dye on the auction house for the boots and Moria silver for the helm, which luckily was also available for tokens on the Yule Festival last year, and saved those items on the wardrobe as well. As for the weapons, we have first the Thane Sword, which is a tier 6 weaponsmith recipe that can either be found as a drop from mobs or on the store for another 300 LOTRO points. I was able to find a recipe in the auction house for 300 silver, so that saved me a lot of farming in Moria or another visit to the store. A big thank you to the player who posted the recipe in the auction house. I don't remember your name, but you did me a great favor. I just needed the proficiency to actually craft the sword, so I took a couple of days to make my way from the apprentice tier to the supreme tier until I finally got it. Now, for the javelin I'm out of luck, as on Arkenstone I'm using the cosmetic of the level 100 2nd age crafted javelin, which I like a lot for its 7-star motif and blue mast, but I don't have the mats on Landroval required to craft it, and I also thought it very unlikely that someone would have them, but even if they did, it would undoubtedly cost a small fortune in gold, which I also lack on Landroval. The answer, once again, came through the level 120 Valar from the Ultimate Edition of Minas Morgul. In the end, I decided to just use the cosmetics from the legendary items that came with the package until I can find a better solution. Other than the old crafted allies, I found out you can still use Figments of Splendor to barter for the weapons the Roving Threads Quartermasters offer, which is what I've been referencing since the start of the video, but you already know why I'm not using them. Hopefully, all the other legacy allies will be made available once again in some form or another, so I can get the old javelin cosmetic back, but this is a serviceable enough solution for the time being. All this, however, pales in comparison to the true challenge of replicating my Citadel Guard outfit, the infamous Bridge Warden shield that only drops from Osgiliath instances. I started farming Ruined City and Boss 1 of Dome of Stars at level 50 since I used the Valar, knowing I was at the mercy of the RNG. As I have said many times before, farming this shield is one of the most exasperating and frustrating things in LOTRO, but the shield itself has such an amazing appearance, I don't think there is any other alternative that comes close to it. I lost count of the number of runs I did, at least 3 of each instance daily for almost 2 months, until the shield finally dropped. It took me less time than when I did it on Arkenstone, but I still wouldn't call this easy. I sometimes thought about the possibility of it never dropping, and what would I do if that were the case, so I was extremely happy about finally getting the shield and completing my outfit. Even though at the time I was still missing some of the pieces, I knew the hardest part was truly behind me. Now, with the LOTRO points ready, the Husky Wolf Dog tome in my shared storage, and the outfits in my wardrobe, all I had left to do was running through the intro on Mossward, purchasing the cosmetics on the LOTRO store, and taking a quick trip to one of the other starting areas to grab all I needed at the vault. However, that was not the end of it. Just a few days before I could finally start playing through Before the Shadow, LOTRO announced the avatar updates for all race of main characters. If you saw my previous posts, you will know Beriathan's original look didn't transition all that well into the new system, so that meant I also needed to visit the barber and tweak my appearance to more closely resemble what I had before the update. I needed to wait a little bit more until the vac in which sliders were reset into the middle position whenever you visited the barber was fixed, so the changes I wanted were saved properly. I initially tried changing my appearance drastically, but I couldn't find a new look that I liked, so in the end I decided to just make some small adjustments to certain sliders of the mouth, the nose and the eye color. And after getting an appearance that I do like, and I do think resembles the original look more closely, I am at long last finally ready to start my Before the Shadow playthrough. So there you have it. This is all that was needed for me to replicate a new Beriathan on Landroval. Now that everything has been done, stay tuned for the Before the Shadow playthrough that I have promised so many times already, and that would be it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed, I hope you found it entertaining or informative, and that you like sharing with me the journey of creating a new Beriathan, but that is truly all I have for today, and I will see you when I start Before the Shadow.